Problems that we face in our modern day with moral relativism. Well, the roots of it, a lot of the roots of it go back to the Enlightenment era. Okay? Late 1700s, early 1800s. Okay, these philosophers, Hobbes, Locke, Voltaire, say human nature, morality can't be known. Moral relativists. Catholic tradition is that we can know human nature and we can posit moral norms without even looking at the Bible. You can look at human nature and think, what is good for the human person? This is what the ancient philosophers did, like Aristotle and Plato. They developed a whole series, a system of ethics, which is philosophical morality. You use your reason. You think, okay, this is good for human beings, this is bad for them. Well, the Enlightenment, as you can see here, okay, term used to describe a movement of philosophers, writers, 17th and 18th centuries, who claimed man had now come of age. Okay, we're now enlightened. One of the reasons for this is, science is now proving faith, you just cast off faith. We have reason now, okay, so let's forget about faith. Man has come of age out of his infancy using his reason rather than depending upon revelation from God to discover the truths about man and the world. Okay? And this movement was characterized by, move up here, rationalism. It's one of the words I wrote on the board yesterday. Ratio, reason, intellect, Latin. This is a little more detailed explanation. A system of thought holds that human reason itself is self-sufficient. It doesn't need to be enlightened by God to know all that's necessary for personal well-being, for the well-being of society. And even faith and revelation, what God has told us, can be judged according to the standard of purely human reason, which means practically, Jesus isn't God. That doesn't make sense. God became man. I can't figure this out. No, Jesus is just a good guy who gave us some good ideas. And we cannot accept the possibility of miracles. A rationalist doesn't accept miracles. Because that's not reasonable. God doesn't really act in the world. Now, aligned to that is what is called skepticism. You've heard of being a skeptic? What does that mean? If someone says they're a skeptic, what do you think it means? They're doubting about everything. They're just, okay, prove it to me. I don't believe this. Okay, I really can't know this. It's kind of like being an agnostic. Okay? Well, skepticism is social and political thought. It means Enlightenment thinkers embrace skepticism, which holds that real objective truth about things, human nature, good and evil, okay, etc., they cannot be known with certainty. We can't really know what human nature is like. Even though we study it, we can't know, and we can't know moral laws. They're skeptical about everything. We can't know these things with certainty. Doubts the possibility of true knowledge and of human knowing. So, many of the Enlightened philosophers also were empiricists. Okay? Empiricism in moral philosophy is a system of thought which holds the only source of knowledge is experience, what we know, what we've experienced. Denies our mind can arrive at universal concepts and make judgments about the nature of things. Now, I don't know if you're following me here, but empiricism holds that common, sensible representations of individual objects are not sufficient to explain universal concepts, since they can't be affirmed identically in the same way about several objects. Rather, our mind can only process sense data from a a series of experiences. Therefore, we cannot speak of human nature as such, but only individual human beings who appear to have similar characteristics. I'm going to simplify that for you. What that means is that if we look at human beings, we can study human beings and say, okay, this is how human beings act. Even male and female, we're different, emotionally, psychologically. This is how we act. Well, the empiricists would say, well, no, we really can't know that. We have to study each individual itself. That's the only way we can study human beings, each individual person. We can't make any statements about human nature in general, which really is not reasonable. Consequently, if there's no such thing as human nature, then there can be no universally true moral laws for our human mind to accept, no universally binding moral laws for our will to obey, since all knowledge is conditioned on our limited experience, past experience, unpredictable experience to come again. So we can't have any moral laws. We don't know what human nature is. So we can't have laws that guide human nature. You can only go by my individual experience. Well, that doesn't sound too right. It doesn't sound right, and it's not right. But you had philosophers putting forth these ideas. Okay? And we're going to continue on page 2. Okay? I'm going to traditional philosophy of the ancient Greeks like Aristotle, of the church, Catholic Church, represented by Thomas Aquinas. He was the greatest philosopher of the church, Thomas Aquinas. He lived in the 1100s. And Thomas Aquinas was so brilliant, he had 3 and 4 secretaries at the same time. He was dictating to them different topics, writing different books, because they could only write so fast. He says, okay, you write this, he's writing, so okay, you write this, you write this, you write this, and go back. His mind was just magnificent. He said he never read anything he didn't understand. He understood everything. He had a teacher named Albert the Great. He's a saint. And St. Thomas Aquinas, he was a big guy. And he never used to say anything in class. He would just be silent. And his fellow students thought he was dumb. And because he was a big guy, they called him the dumb ox. So one day, the professor, Albert the Great, posed a question, and no one could figure it out. Thomas Aquinas was like, well, he was very humble. He didn't want to brag, I know the answer. So maybe he was called upon or something, and he explained it perfectly. And then everyone knew that this guy had a great mind. He was sitting there silent because he was humble. He didn't want to show off his knowledge. People thought he was the dumb ox. Ever heard of an author named G.K. Chesterton? Well, he's a great Christian writer from the early part of the last century. And he wrote a novel about St. Thomas Aquinas called The Dumb Ox, which is really good. Anyway, ancient Greeks like Aristotle, Plato, and the church, Thomas Aquinas, they hold that our minds can arrive at the objective truth of things. Remember, there's objective truth, and then there's subjective perception of truth. Well, our minds can know objective truth. That's what the good philosophers say. And come to know the nature of things through universal concepts like man. What man is? Man, gender, man, which is what? The human person. A dog. A tree. You can study dogs, and then when you see a dog, what do you say? That's a dog. It barks like a dog, it acts like a dog. You wouldn't say, well, we can't say that that's a dog. We have to look at that individual thing and then determine what it is. We don't know really what it is. That's the skeptical empiricist outlook. And the good philosophers throughout the ages have said, no, we can know what dogs are by just studying dogs. You know what a cat is by studying cats. Cats they act like dogs, right? Cats are very independent. Cats do their own thing, right? You say, hey, come here. And the cat will look at you like, walk away, you know. The dogs, they'll come and dogs act like dogs, cats act like cats. Okay? Our minds can arrive at universal concepts by abstracting them from concrete individual objects. Okay? Now, this is how we know things. We study and look at individual dogs. I abstract from these individual dogs a concept, a universal concept of what a dog is. We have an idea what a dog is, right? In our minds. Yeah, dogness. Dogs act like dogs. Cats act like cats. See, these empiricists said, oh, we can't say this. We can't say that there are natures of things. They deny that our mind has the ability to look at individual things and abstract a universal concept of what a dog is, what a cat is, of what a human being is. And see, John is a man, Paul is a man, Fido is a dog, Max is a dog. Why did I put Max there? Did I mention Max before?
Yes, Max is
my dog is Max. He no longer exists. Anyway, he was a great dog. English Springer Spaniel. He could jump about this high. One time, he saw a dog. I had him out in front of my rectory. And there was a dog running down the street with it, just kind of trotting down the street with it, with the guy riding a bicycle. And Max went after the dog, just because he liked to play with dogs. And he went running across the street, into the street, and he went to stop because he realized he was going too fast. And he started sliding on the street, you know, where there's claws. And he was sliding right into a car. And he came about this close to a car, and then just lickety-split, he decided he was going to crash into this car, so he jumped over the car.
Oh, wow.
That's why they call them English Springer Spaniels. I realized that looking at them. Yeah, they can spring with their legs. They would just jump and legs like a gazelle. Anyway, Fido's a dog, Max is a dog. We can arrive at universal concepts, man and dog, and know the nature of these objects. Okay? Now, where's all this going? Okay, there's a problem with skepticism, especially empiricism, leads to relativism, which holds that there's no absolute objective truth. Okay? Everyone makes up their own rules. Truth is subjective. It depends upon the subject, the individual person. What's true for me may not be true for you. Okay? You know, like I said, it doesn't work when you're talking about laws of gravity. Okay. Will a bullet, will it travel so fast if you shoot it out of a gun? Okay? Well, I don't know. Well, stand there and let me shoot. Okay? No thanks, because you know there are objective rules of physics that you know people don't deny. Okay, so but when you say that there's no absolute objective truth is subjective. Depends on the individual person, the subject, or it depends upon time, place, circumstances. Okay. Well, if I wake up on Wednesday and I feel like you know, being a thief, and Thursday I don't feel like it, well, that's okay, because that's how I feel. This is moral relativism, which holds there are no unchangeable principles of human behavior, no laws which can apply to everyone. Why? Because either there is no objective truth or no inherently evil actions that are evil for everyone. Since whether something is good or evil depends upon circumstances, customs, or social approval. Social approval, okay? I'll tell you, if even 5 years ago, especially go back 20 years, people would have said, oh, same-sex marriage, people would have said plastic. Now it's like, well, I think it's all right. Well, because people's ideas have changed, does that mean reality has changed? The moral relativists say, fine, you can allow monogamy today and polygamy tomorrow. That's what's coming, by the way, polygamy. They've already said this, all the legal scholars. Because if you can say two people of the same sex can marry, well, who's to say that I can't have 4 wives or 6 wives or 10 wives or Mormons do it, the Muslims do it. The Sheiks have hundreds of wives. So anyway, so I say here, for example, if most people think shacking up or abortion or same-sex marriage is okay, even though in the past almost everyone thought it was wrong, it should be acceptable. This means we become gods, deciding right or wrong for ourselves. Now, there are a few philosophies, okay? Well, I'm going to break off there for a minute. I want you to look on the back of the sheets I gave you, because I'm going to, there's, on the very back page, there is an article from, this is a Catholic newspaper from Central Illinois, Peoria area. And this was, if you look at the date up on top, see the date? February 12, 2002. So this is, I was teaching a class of senior apologetics in 2002 in Champaign, Illinois, at the newly opened St. Thomas More Catholic High School. Okay? And I found this, and I to make my point on what I'm just saying, I discussed this article with them. Now, a survey finds most Americans regard moral truth as relative. Now, on the left-hand column, you see where I have the bracket, okay? Among teens surveyed, this is 15 years ago, 13 years ago. Among teens surveyed, 83% said moral truth always depends upon the situation or circumstance. That view was expressed by 75% of young adults, like 20-somethings, okay? 55% of those aged between age 36 and 55, 61% those over 55. So this moral relativism has infected the minds of a lot of people, especially you, 83% 13 years ago. Well, if it feels good, do it, basically. Okay? Now in the middle column, where I have underlined there about 2/3 of the way down, the left middle column, okay? Among teens, only 20% said they base their ethical or moral choices on principles or standards. So in other words, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And then the next column over where I bracketed, okay? Other sources for moral choice that teens said best describe their own decisions were whatever feels right or comfortable in the situation. Oh, isn't that a good standard to live by? Okay. I feel like, getting drunk tonight, so I'll just, that's what I feel like doing, okay? I feel like having sex with this person right now, I'll just have sex with them, whatever feels good at the moment, yeah. Okay. And is that a way to live? Well, if you can't live even an organized life if you live like this. I feel like going to school today, so tomorrow I don't, so I'll just stay home. I tell people, Sunday morning I have 7 a.m. mass. I don't feel like getting up at 7 a.m. For 7 a.m. mass, I'm getting up at 6:30. Well, what if I just decided to sleep in? Well, I don't feel like getting up. I don't feel like going to work today, so I won't go to work. Well, what's going to happen? Your boss is going to say, well, why didn't you show up? Well, I just didn't feel right. What would you say to someone who says this? Are you out of touch with reality? Not, We don't live like that. Our moral lives can be based on this type of thinking. So, whatever feels right or comfortable in the situation, 38%. Whatever will bring the most positive outcome personally, 16%. So if stealing is good for me and that's going to benefit me, well then I'll steal. It surprises me that people actually say they think this way. But I think the numbers would be even higher if you took the survey today. This is 13 years ago. Because this is the problem we've been facing. That's why I'm teaching this class. So, now I'm going to just return to page 2 on on my sheet here, okay? So, here are some philosophers. Thomas Hobbes. If you ever studied the history of philosophy, Hobbes was a famous British empiricist. He mocked the idea of the immaterial soul. Well, there's no such thing as a soul. Denied the existence of a spiritual reality. Only matter exists. Denied the notion of universal concepts. That there be things universal, that a living thing is a genus or a general thing. He denied the whole concept of there being a genus. Well, even science recognizes this. He denied it. Supposedly a great thinker. John Locke. Has anyone ever heard of John Locke? He was followed by our founders who looked to him. He was a philosopher. Well, he was another leading empiricist. Founding fathers read his works, Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson, by the way, was a deist. He was basically someone who said, I believe in God, but God doesn't get involved in things. He denied miracles. He thought Jesus was just a good guy. Anyway, John Locke, empiricist, Locke thought that we cannot speak of fixed natures of things or hold with certainty the notion of human nature. Here's the quote from him. I have made some suppositions that will look strange to some readers regarding this ignorance we are in of the nature of that thinking that this is in us, he's talking about the soul, and which we look at as ourselves. Okay? Did we know what it was or how it was tied to a certain system of fleeting animal spirits, or whether it could or could not perform its operations of thinking and memory out of the body? Well, what? If you have a soul, can the soul leave the body and think? Okay, well, he ends up denying the notion of the soul, though our souls normally don't leave the body unless we die. Okay? And Locke's bizarre ideas on the human soul. Here he is again. But taking, as we ordinarily do now, we're in the dark concerning these things. He's a skeptic too. Okay? The soul of man for an immaterial substance. Okay? There can be no absurdity at all to suppose that the same soul may at different times be united to different bodies, and with them make up for that time one man. Well, the same soul may at different times be united to different bodies. So, what is he saying there? Well, exactly, you and I may have the same soul. We all may have the same soul. See, no good philosopher had ever said this. Even back to the ancient Greeks, the first philosophers, soul is the principle of life in a person, in a living thing. Philosophically speaking, animals have souls, plants have souls. It's the principle of life. We have a special kind of soul, we call it rational, with which a reason. My dog, Max, knew things he didn't know he knew them. So, you see the bad ideas these guys have. And Locke, this is one of my favorites. Locke also hypothesized God could endow inanimate matter, tables, floors, rocks, okay, with the capacity for thought. Okay? I see no contradiction in it that the first eternal thinking being or omnipotent spirit should, if he please, he doesn't call it God, the omnipotent spirit, okay? If he please, give certain systems of created senseless matter put together as he thinks that some degrees of sense, perception, and thought. So, tables can think, desks can think, the floor can think. What's so unreasonable about this? Well, what's unreasonable about that? We can observe. How do we get knowledge of things? We can observe human beings and think, okay, they have rational thought. We can observe a dog and think, dogs don't have rational thought. Monkeys don't have rational thought. How do we know that? From observing them. This guy's out in the ozone. And he's regarded as one of the great philosophers that our founding fathers founded. His philosophy is bad. See, there are good philosophers and bad philosophers. That's what this the talk you listened to on philosophy, how there are dead philosophies, he was talking about like this. And these Enlightenment philosophers deny God implants in our soul, human nature, any moral rules of conduct for all to follow. As empiricists, right and wrong are developed through our experience in social norms. Does that sound familiar? Oh, well, our social norms are changing, our societal experience is changing. Anyway, tomorrow.